Have you ever felt like God was a million miles away, no matter how desperately you prayed? Like there was an unbridgeable gap between your struggles and divine help? What if I told you that the very way you've been taught to think about God and heaven has been keeping you from experiencing the divine power that's already within you at this very moment? For centuries, spiritual seekers have been looking in the wrong direction entirely. They've climbed mountains, built temples, performed rituals, all searching outward for what has always been within. Has this ever happened to you, praying with all your heart for healing, for abundance, for peace, only to feel like your words are disappearing into an empty void? You're not alone. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely transform your understanding of spirituality and your relationship with the divine presence. The kingdom of heaven isn't some distant paradise you'll reach after death. It isn't a reward waiting for you after years of good behavior. It's something far more immediate, far more accessible, and infinitely more powerful. It's a state of consciousness, a realm of spiritual awareness that already exists within you right now, waiting only for your recognition. When you truly understand this fundamental truth, everything changes. Your prayers transform from desperate pleas to a profound recognition. You stop begging an external God to fix your problems and begin to awaken to the divine reality that has always been the essence of your being, perfect, complete, and untouched by external conditions. Think about it this way. What if this time, you've been like a person dying of thirst while floating on a vast ocean of fresh water simply because you didn't realize you could drink it? What if the very solution to your health challenges, financial struggles, and relationship problems has been within you all along, accessible through a simple shift in awareness? This isn't some new age fantasy or positive thinking trick. This is practical mysticism that produces real transformation in people's lives. I've witnessed individuals heal from conditions doctors had deemed permanent. I've seen people rise from financial ruin to unexpected abundance. I've watched broken relationships restore in ways that seemed impossible, all through this single understanding. What exactly happens in your consciousness when you make this profound shift from seeking God out there to recognizing divine presence within? How does this understanding literally rewire your relationship with prayer, healing, and abundance? The transformation begins with recognizing that when you pray, you're not sending messages into empty space, hoping they'll reach a distant deity. If these teachings about the kingdom within resonate with your spiritual journey, subscribe to join our community of seekers who are discovering the divine presence in their daily lives. Each new video explores practical mysticism that produces real transformation. Instead, you're recognizing what has always been true, that the divine presence lives within your consciousness, waiting to be acknowledged. Now, I want to go even deeper into this revelation. What's truly fascinating is that this inner kingdom operates by completely different laws than the material world we're accustomed to navigating daily. In our physical experience, we see limitation, disease, lack, and separation. But in the realm of spiritual consciousness, these conditions simply don't exist. Think about this hidden truth. In this inner kingdom, there is no lack. There is no disease. There is no separation from good. It's a dimension of perfect wholeness that remains untouched by external circumstances. And here's where your journey of transformation really begins. When you enter this kingdom through meditation and spiritual awareness, you don't just escape reality. You bring its higher reality into your visible experience. This is the profound secret behind authentic spiritual healing that has been misunderstood for centuries. It's not about convincing God to fix your problems. It's about shifting your consciousness to recognize the perfection that already exists within you, allowing that inner reality to transform your outer experience. But let me be absolutely clear about something that many spiritual teachers gloss over. This understanding doesn't suddenly make you a perfect being who floats above life's challenges on a cloud of bliss. The mindset shift I'm describing is far more practical and powerful than that. What truly changes is that you gain access to an inner resource that is always available, always present, and always responsive to your recognition. It's like discovering you've had a hidden superpower all along, one that's been waiting patiently for you to notice it. Through what S.Goldsmith calls the practice of the presence, you develop a continuous awareness of this inner kingdom. This isn't some abstract concept. It's a tangible shift in how you navigate every aspect of your life, from health challenges to financial decisions to relationship dynamics. Imagine facing a critical situation at work, and instead of being consumed by anxiety, you first turn within for even 30 seconds to recognize this spiritual truth. The impact is immediate, not necessarily in changing the external circumstances, but in changing your relationship to those circumstances. Solutions reveal themselves. Creative ideas emerge. Your response comes from a place of centered wisdom rather than reactive fear. The revelations that come from this practice aren't random or unpredictable. They follow consistent patterns that anyone can access through persistent practice. I've witnessed this with thousands of students worldwide who've applied these principles in diverse circumstances. What's your experience with sensing this inner presence? Write in the comments, "I recognize the kingdom within," if you've ever had even a momentary awareness of this inner spiritual reality, even if you didn't have words to describe it at the time. The most remarkable aspect of this inner resource is that it's not something you need to create or achieve. It's already fully formed within your consciousness. What we're really talking about is removing the barriers that have kept you from experiencing what has always been present. Let's look at how this insight transforms your approach to specific life challenges. When facing a health crisis, most people experience an immediate cascade of fear, anxiety, and desperation. That's completely natural. But with this understanding of the inner kingdom, something profound shifts in your response pattern. Instead of only panicking and racing to material solutions, you first take a moment to turn within and recognize a spiritual truth that transcends the physical condition. In that inner realm of consciousness, there is only wholeness, only divine perfection. It's a reality untouched by whatever diagnosis or symptoms may be presenting themselves in the material world. Let me be crystal clear about something critical. This recognition doesn't replace medical wisdom or practical care. That's a dangerous misunderstanding that has led many sincere spiritual seekers astray. What it does is open a channel for healing power that transcends material limitations, while you also pursue appropriate medical treatment. I've witnessed remarkable transformations in people who maintained this dual approach. A woman in my community had suffered from a chronic condition for over 3 years. She'd tried every medical approach available with minimal improvement. When she began practicing this inner recognition, something shifted fundamentally. Within 6 months, she was completely free of the condition that medical experts had told her she would simply have to manage for life. The same principle applies to financial challenges, which can trigger some of our deepest fears and insecurities. Our cultural blueprint tells us that money is scarce, that we must struggle and compete for limited resources. But in the journey towards spiritual awareness, you discover an alternative perspective that changes everything. When confronting financial obstacles, you return to consciousness of the inner kingdom where divine supply is infinite and eternally flowing. This isn't magical thinking, it's a profound shift in your relationship with abundance itself. From this elevated awareness, right action emerges naturally. The mindset of lack dissolves, and your decisions come from a place of clarity, rather than desperation. What's fascinating is how this inner shift manifests in tangible results. Opportunities begin appearing that you might have missed while operating from fear. Solutions present themselves that weren't visible from your previous vantage point. This is consciousness demonstrating its own abundance through spiritual recognition, a behind-the-scenes process that operates according to laws most people never discover. I remember working with a businessman who was facing bankruptcy after his partner embezzled company funds. Rather than collapsing under the pressure, he began practicing this recognition of infinite supply within his consciousness. Within weeks, an unexpected connection led to a business opportunity he had never imagined possible. The revelation wasn't that money magically appeared, it was that his shift in consciousness allowed him to see solutions that had been there all along. If you've ever experienced a moment where an unexpected solution appeared just when you needed it most, type divine timing in the comments below. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require some extraordinary spiritual gift or decades of meditation practice. It starts with a simple recognition that can be practiced by anyone willing to pause and turn within, even for a few moments each day. Now, what I find most liberating about this spiritual journey is that it's not about instant perfection. It's about gradual, authentic transformation. This shift in consciousness develops naturally over weeks and months of consistent practice. You won't master this understanding overnight, and that's perfectly natural. Even S.Goldsmith, who taught this wisdom worldwide, spent years developing this consciousness through meditation, study, and real-world application. The breakthrough insight here is that what matters isn't some enlightenment endpoint. It's beginning today with whatever level of understanding you currently possess. The mindset of perfection is actually the enemy of progress on this path. Your authentic starting point, wherever you are right now spiritually, is the perfect foundation for growth. Let me share a practical framework that has helped thousands integrate this wisdom into daily life. Start each morning with a simple acknowledgement before checking your phone or thinking about your schedule. The kingdom of heaven is within me right now. This divine consciousness is my true nature. This takes just a few seconds, but establishes a foundation that influences everything that follows. Then, during challenging moments throughout your day, a difficult conversation, an unexpected expense, physical discomfort, take even 30 seconds to return to this inner kingdom and recognize the truth beyond material appearances. This isn't denying the reality of the challenge. It's accessing a deeper dimension of consciousness where solutions originate. What's fascinating is the pattern of subtle shifts that emerge over time. With this practice, most people notice deeper peace in situations that previously triggered anxiety. This isn't forced calm. It's a natural byproduct of recognizing that your well-being isn't entirely dependent on external circumstances. The second revelation typically involves unexpected solutions appearing for persistent problems. This isn't magical. It's what happens when you access higher consciousness that isn't limited by fear-based thinking. Your mind literally operates differently when connected to this inner kingdom. The third pattern involves growing awareness of divine guidance in daily decisions. You begin sensing an intuitive wisdom that transcends intellectual analysis. This guidance doesn't eliminate the need for practical thinking, but it provides an additional dimension of insight that proves remarkably accurate. One woman in our community described her experience this way. For the first 3 weeks, it felt like I was just repeating empty words each morning. Then, Suddenly, during a meeting where I would normally have been overwhelmed with stress, I felt this unexpected calm. I made better decisions from that place. Now I can access that state within seconds when I need it most. The beauty of this approach is that it works behind the scenes, gradually transforming your life experience without dramatic spiritual gymnastics or complicated rituals. The simplicity is what makes it accessible to anyone willing to practice consistently. If you've experienced even a glimpse of this inner calm in moments of external chaos, type inner kingdom in the comments below. This daily recognition practice forms the foundation. But there's something equally important about how this inner kingdom becomes your source for everything in life: healing, prosperity, relationships, and creative expression. What's truly transformative about this approach is that recognition of the inner kingdom gradually becomes your foundation for everything, not just isolated aspects of life, but the entire spectrum of human experience: healing, prosperity, relationships, creative expression, spiritual growth. All of these dimensions begin flowing from the same source consciousness rather than from fragmented, fear-based efforts. Subscribe to continue exploring these profound spiritual truths with us. Our channel is dedicated to helping you recognize and live from the kingdom of heaven within your consciousness, bringing healing and wholeness to every area of your life. This represents a fundamental paradigm shift that most spiritual seekers miss entirely. You're not creating this kingdom through positive thinking or visualization or affirmations. Those tools can be helpful stepping stones, but they often reinforce the very misconception that keeps us separated from divine presence: the idea that we need to manufacture spiritual reality through mental effort. The revelation that changes everything is that you're simply uncovering what has always been present, waiting for your awareness. It's like removing layers of dust from a mirror that's always been reflecting divine light. The dust doesn't destroy the mirror. It only obscures your ability to perceive what's already there. Let me share a remarkable story that illustrates this principle in action. A woman came to one of Joel's classes, suffering from a condition that had persisted for 3 years despite every medical approach available. She had consulted specialists, tried countless treatments, and spent enormous sums of money with no lasting relief. Her doctors were compassionate, but ultimately told her she would simply have to learn to live with constant pain and limitation. She began studying these teachings about the kingdom of heaven within. At first, she struggled to grasp how consciousness could possibly affect physical conditions. The concept seemed too abstract, too mystical for her practical mind. But something compelled her to persist in daily meditation, returning consistently to the recognition that divine perfection existed within her consciousness, regardless of what her body seemed to tell her about disease and limitation. After 6 weeks of this practice, something shifted internally. She couldn't explain it in material terms, but she felt a deep peace replace the anxiety she had carried for years. Within 3 months, the physical symptoms began diminishing noticeably. Her doctors were puzzled, but pleased. Within 6 months, she was completely free from the condition that had dominated her life and stolen her joy. What's fascinating about this journey is what didn't happen. There was no dramatic spiritual experience, no voice from heaven, no sudden miraculous transformation. There was simply a gradual awakening to spiritual truth that allowed the innate healing intelligence within her to express itself more fully. This pattern repeats across countless testimonies in different areas of life. The breakthrough isn't that God suddenly decides to help after years of apparent indifference. It's that consciousness itself shifts from material limitation to spiritual awareness, allowing what was always present to manifest visibly. This woman's experience demonstrates something essential. Persistence matters more than initial understanding. She didn't fully grasp the concept intellectually at first, but she practiced anyway. The insight came through experience rather than analysis, a crucial distinction for anyone on this path. If you've ever experienced healing or transformation that seemed to come from beyond your own efforts, write "divine healing" in the comments below. Now, this same principle applies just as powerfully to financial circumstances, though the manifestation takes a different form. Consider the experience of a businessman who faced complete financial ruin after discovering his trusted partner had embezzled company funds. Creditors were demanding immediate payment. Legal troubles multiplied daily. His reputation in the business community, built over decades of hard work, was collapsing before his eyes. Someone gave him Joel's recordings about the kingdom of heaven. Initially, he dismissed them as religious philosophy, with no practical value for his desperate financial situation. But having exhausted every material solution, he began listening during his commute and practicing the meditation exercises Joel described. The revelation that transformed his mindset was deceptively simple. Divine supply existed within his own consciousness, independent of external circumstances. While his bank account showed devastating losses, the inner resource of spiritual abundance remained untouched, waiting only for his recognition. Within 2 weeks of this practice, not years, not even months, an unexpected contact led to a business opportunity he had never imagined possible. Within 6 months, he had not only recovered from the brink of bankruptcy, but was actually more prosperous than before the crisis. What's remarkable about this journey is the insight he gained beyond financial recovery. He discovered an inner well-being that could never be stolen, manipulated, or destroyed, even if external circumstances should collapse again. This pattern of transformation extends beyond physical healing and financial restoration into what many consider the most challenging domain: human relationships. These connections often carry deep emotional wounds that seem impossible to heal through conventional approaches. Consider the mother who had been estranged from her daughter for 5 painful years following a bitter conflict. The separation had created a void in both their lives, yet pride and hurt prevented reconciliation. This mother had tried everything: heartfelt letters, mutual friends as intermediaries, professional therapy, even surprise visits. Nothing worked. The relationship seemed permanently broken beyond any possibility of repair. Then she encountered these teachings about the kingdom. Consciousness. What made her approach different this time was that she focused not on changing her daughter, but on recognizing the divine perfection within her own consciousness. The paradigm shift was profound. Instead of seeing her daughter as a problem to fix or manipulate, she began acknowledging the spiritual perfection that existed within both of them, regardless of external appearances. She meditated daily on the truth that love, wholeness, and harmony existed in the kingdom within her, releasing all attempts to control outcomes. This represents a fundamental departure from conventional wisdom about relationships. Most approaches focus on communication techniques, behavior modification, or negotiation strategies, all external methods. Kingdom consciousness begins with inner recognition instead. After 4 months of this practice, without any direct contact with her daughter, something extraordinary happened. Her daughter unexpectedly called. The conversation was brief but warm. Over the following months, connection gradually restored without forced effort or manipulation. Today, 2 years later, they have a relationship deeper than ever before. The revelation here isn't about magical thinking or coincidence. It's about a fundamental principle of consciousness. When you stop trying to fix people externally and start recognizing spiritual truth internally, something shifts in the invisible fabric that connects us all. The mother attributes this transformation entirely to her shift in consciousness, from trying to manipulate circumstances to recognizing inner spiritual reality. If you've experienced a relationship healing that seemed impossible through conventional methods, write "Consciousness Heals" in the comments. What makes these testimonies so compelling is the pattern they reveal across different life domains. When you truly understand the kingdom of heaven as your own consciousness, you stop manipulating outer conditions and start recognizing inner reality. From this recognition, healing, prosperity, harmony, and guidance naturally emerge into your visible experience as material reflections of spiritual truth. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing specific techniques that deepen your experience of kingdom consciousness beyond the basic practices we've discussed. The first technique is what Joel called the practice of stillness. This goes far beyond simply sitting quietly in meditation. It's an active inner stance of receptivity, an openness to divine presence that already exists within your consciousness, waiting only for your recognition and attention. Set aside 15 minutes each morning before external demands consume your attention. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and release all thoughts about problems, needs, or desires. The key insight here is that you're not praying for things or visualizing outcomes. You're simply resting in the awareness that the kingdom of heaven is present within you right now. Let this recognition fill your consciousness without effort to make something happen or achieve any particular result. This is where most spiritual practitioners stumble. They approach meditation as another achievement, another task to perfect. But the revelation here is about allowing rather than striving. Your mind will initially rebel against this simplicity. It will insist you should be doing something, asking for something, working towards something tangible. This mental resistance is entirely natural. It's your thought patterns trying to maintain control. Simply observe these thoughts without engaging them and return gently to your recognition of inner kingdom presence. Over weeks of consistent practice, you'll begin experiencing a deeper peace and a subtle but unmistakable sense of divine presence that feels fundamentally different from ordinary mental states. This transformation happens behind the scenes in your consciousness, gradually reshaping your entire relationship with reality. The second complementary technique is what Joel called divine indifference. This term often creates misunderstandings because it sounds cold or detached at first hearing, but the revelation here is quite different from what most assume. Divine indifference doesn't mean you become uncaring or passive about life circumstances. Rather, it means you're no longer enslaved to material conditions because you've discovered an inner kingdom that remains perfect regardless of outer appearances. You care deeply about situations but are not controlled by them because your source is consciousness, not circumstances. This represents a profound mindset shift that changes how you navigate daily challenges. When difficult situations arise, you pause and recognize, the kingdom of heaven within me is untouched by this material appearance. Divine reality exists beyond what my senses report. This recognition doesn't deny the existence of problems. It doesn't prevent you from taking practical action. But it does prevent problems from controlling your inner state completely. You remain anchored in spiritual truth, even while addressing material matters wisely. A business executive who mastered this technique described his experience this way. When his largest client suddenly canceled a major contract, instead of spiraling into panic, he took 5 minutes alone to recognize the kingdom consciousness within him. From that centered awareness, he addressed the situation calmly and creatively. Within a week, 3 new opportunities appeared that proved more profitable than the lost contract. Have you experienced a moment where inner peace allowed you to see solutions that panic would have hidden? Type inner clarity in the comments if you've had even one experience of this kind. The profound insight behind these complementary techniques is that they work synergistically to create a comprehensive framework for living from spiritual awareness rather than material Reaction. The third essential technique that completes this spiritual framework is recognizing the kingdom in others. This represents perhaps the most profound revolution in how you relate to people in your daily life, especially during moments of conflict or tension. When someone treats you unfairly, whether it's a harsh comment from a family member, criticism from your boss, or a stranger cutting you off in traffic, your natural human reaction is to see them as the problem, the enemy, the obstacle to your peace. Kingdom consciousness reveals a deeper truth that transforms these interactions completely. The same divine presence that exists within your consciousness exists within theirs too, even if they're currently unaware of it, and acting from ego, fear, or conditioning instead. This represents a fundamental mindset shift in how you perceive difficult people. You're not looking at them through rose-colored glasses or denying problematic behavior. You're seeing beyond the surface, to the spiritual essence that remains perfect regardless of temporary expressions. Let me be absolutely clear about a crucial distinction. This recognition doesn't mean you allow mistreatment or fail to set healthy boundaries. It doesn't mean becoming a doormat for others' dysfunction. It means you respond to challenging situations without seeing others as enemies to defeat. Your reactions come from wisdom rather than wounded ego. What's fascinating about this approach is that people actually sense when you see them through kingdom consciousness. Something in them, at a level deeper than intellectual awareness, responds to this recognition naturally. It's as if your higher awareness calls to theirs, awakening something dormant within their own consciousness. A teacher implemented this approach with a student who had been disruptive and disrespectful for months. Instead of reacting with anger and punishment, she began silently recognizing the kingdom of heaven within this troubled teen. During her morning meditation, she maintained appropriate classroom discipline while holding this inner recognition consistently. The revelation came within just 3 weeks when the student's behavior began changing noticeably. Within 2 months, he had become one of her most engaged and cooperative students. Years later, he told her something remarkable. He had somehow sensed she saw something good in him when everyone else had given up. That recognition had awakened something within his own consciousness and changed his entire life trajectory. Now, imagine yourself 3 years from now, having practiced these principles daily through successes and failures. The person you are then would look back at who you are today and barely recognize the fearful, limited consciousness that once dominated your experience. You wake each morning with automatic awareness of inner kingdom presence, no longer something you must consciously remember, but your natural state, like breathing. Challenges still arise in your life. This isn't about escaping the human journey, but they no longer shake your fundamental peace because you're anchored in spiritual reality that transcends material circumstances. People sense something different about you, though they may not be able to name it precisely. You respond to conflict with compassion rather than defensiveness. You see the best in others, even when they cannot see it themselves. What inner quality would you most want to develop through this practice of kingdom consciousness? Share in the comments, I'm developing quality, whether it's peace, compassion, wisdom, or something else entirely. The most remarkable aspect of this transformation is that you discover unshakable peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect. The kingdom of heaven within proves itself faithful through every challenge, every loss, every disappointment. This journey of discovering the kingdom of heaven within isn't something that happens overnight. It unfolds gradually as you practice these principles consistently, allowing divine consciousness to flow through everything you are. What makes this path so powerful is that it doesn't depend on extraordinary spiritual gifts or perfect circumstances. It simply requires your willingness to recognize what has always been present within you. If something in this message has resonated with your spirit today, If you felt even a subtle recognition of this truth, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to write "The Kingdom Within Awakens" in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read right now to continue their own journey. I create these videos because I've witnessed how profoundly life changes when we discover this inner kingdom. If you found value in today's message, consider hitting that like button. It helps others discover these teachings who might be searching for exactly this wisdom right now. And if you'd like to continue exploring these transformative principles together, subscribe to join our growing community of spiritual seekers who are putting these truths into practice daily. I share new insights and practical applications each week that build upon what we've discussed today. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even deeper, exploring how to maintain kingdom consciousness during life's most challenging moments. Click and continue with me over there as we discover how this inner kingdom provides strength and clarity even in your darkest hours. The divine presence within you is waiting to be recognized. Let's continue this journey together.